Hey, this is Amulet from Difference in Skill, and I'm bringing you a deck profile of Weiss Schwarz again. I know they're not really popular, but I'm trying to really promote this card game in the channel through. I'll be uploading more Vanguard in, well, close future, because I will be getting a bit of new cards soon. So anyway, this is my Capo Student Council deck, and I had this deck for quite a while, but I really only recently completed this, not like that long ago, so I didn't really show off for quite a while, even though some people might be aware that I had it. So I'm going to start with the level 3s first, because I think it's easier to go backwards. So first of all, I played 3 level 3 Automates, and what she does is she has a heal ability, so when she comes out from hand or change, you can declock one and heal, so heal 1 damage. Pretty basic ability of a lot of level 3s. Her second ability is, well, first ability really, but her second ability is when I have 4 more memory, she gains 1000 permanently, so it's a passive skill. For people who don't understand memory, it's just cards that got removed out of the game for Weiss Schwarz. And then her other ability is when there are 4 or more memory, when you reverse opponent's card, you may send that card into stock. So this is actually a pretty powerful ability, or pretty useful, because whenever you reverse your opponent's key cards, you can send them into their stock instead. So your opponent doesn't have the ability to encore it, or if they don't have another one in their hand during their next turn, it's gonna be difficult. Especially if you manage to reverse a level 3 or a key level 2, it's gonna be more difficult for your opponent. Even though you're giving them an extra stock, it's actually not as helpful as you think for them sometimes. It's not actually as situational as you think, but like sending people's key cards to the stock is actually pretty useful, because your opponent actually just might not be able to come back with it, and they usually their level 3s or key level 2s are pretty important. So the other two, my other level 3s, is I played 2 of wow, suddenly I forgot her name. Alright, Anzu. Her ability is, so she has a heal ability as well, and her second ability is when I attack, I can check the top card of my deck, and if it's a Student Council trade card, I can pay 2 and heal. So whenever I attack, I can check the top, and if it's the right card, then I can pay the cost and heal. This is actually a pretty powerful ability, and although she's kind of weaker than average because she doesn't really gain the power boost, this helps the deck heals a lot if you manage to check the top card of your deck, which is usually not as difficult as you think. Pretty difficult for me though, but because the whole deck has the whole deck is Student Council trade, so usually if you just check like a unit, which is most of the deck, then you get to heal. So pretty powerful. My last level 3, so I play 6 level 3s, is Sharu, and she does not have a heal ability. So her first ability is when this card is attacked. So when someone's attacking me, I can check the top card of my deck, and if I don't like it, I can put it to the waiting loop, so I can discard it if I want. Now this is actually pretty good at level 3s, because or during late game, because when I can check the top card of my deck, if I don't see a Climax, I can just discard it and basically put myself at a higher chance to cancel the damages. Her second ability is when I reverse an opponent's card and I have 3 or more memory, I can send I can send that card to the top of my opponent's deck. So what this does is just it helps you guarantee some damage, like especially if you can do precise damage and you manage to send a card to the top of your opponent's deck, and you only need it to do like 1 or 2 damage. This helps a lot then. And for this deck to gain memory, it's actually not too difficult. And I will just quickly check my mail, which I'm gonna ignore now. Alright, so those are my level 3s, and I'll talk more about memory in this memory in the student council is actually pretty important. Like, it's really important to gain memory because it helps you activate your effects. But not only that, it's a very powerful technique because being able to put cards in your memory, basically removing cards, will help you compress your deck and giving you a higher ratio to basically cancel damages because you manage to compress your deck by basically taking cards out of your deck. So for level 2s, I'll start first. So 2 blue standard level 2 counters. So it adds 3000 power as a counter. Not much to say, it's just the key thing to know is that it's blue color, and this is quite important because this deck doesn't actually contain that much blue, and seeing how a level 3 is blue, it's pretty important that you play a blue counter for this. My other card is my other level 2 is a level support, and she has an encore ability, which is kind of weird, but pretty useful in some sense because it kind of counter matches some decks. This is very situational, honestly, but like the encore ability is just that if you ever run into opponents like this Gaia that have like the cards that can basically deduct power from like the back row, then this is a pretty good ability because level supports in this game, or in fact supports in general in this game, is pretty important. So having your support have an encore ability, meaning it can't die, is pretty useful. Or having the ability to save it on the spot is quite good. I only play one off because I'll show you later on. I'll show you guys that I have to search if I can just search into this. So I only play one because not only that, it's just you don't generally want to actually put 2 level supports or like 2 power assisting type of character behind like the field for student council, because student council is a very like field setup. Like there's another card that I generally want to put next to this card that can help my field, because power in this deck is fairly weak. Even though I have a higher base with like 4 memory and so on, it's the deck actually does kind of lack the necessary power to take down a lot of level 3s from different series. Like the power cap is not too huge. That's the main thing. I played 3 Confessing Rika. Her ability is so basically her ability is when I have 3 or more memory, she gains 2000 of power passively. So she's a 2/195. Seeing how usually I have the memory, and like it's not too hard to actually get memory in this deck or with this deck. This is a pretty good card at level 2 because it's 1 cost and it's 95, which can efficiently run over a lot of things. Can actually run over level 3s as well, like especially if it's early. 95 can run over quite a lot of things with just a little bit of assist and boosting, or even just a climax. You can run over a lot of good cards, and for only 1 cost, it's quite cheap to have a 1 cost 95 at level 2. I played 2 Otome, and she's basically the changer into the level 3 Otome. So and her cost for change is, so she's an encore phase change, and you have to ditch a card in addition to the 2 costs. So it's actually a fairly expensive change in my opinion, but slightly less expensive than like the climax phase changes, because those are actually 3 costs and a card. So yeah, keynote is just that you gotta really be careful at level 2 when you play this, because if you don't want this to die when you play it. So usually what I do is I side attack with this, or I just attack something that's very weak on my opponent's side that they happen to have, or I just use it for a direct attack if they have an empty slot to guarantee the change. And yeah, let's go on. So I play 4 events. I think it's also Confession. Oh, Togi Kiss. Okay, anyway. So this is the Kiss event, and what it does is so it's a 1 cost level 2 event. I can search 1 student council from our waiting room and add it to my hand. Then I can put this card and another copy of this card. So a maximum of 1 copy, meaning I can remove 2 edits into the memory. So this is a very key card for student council because to generate like a lot of memory quickly, this is actually like the easiest way, and at the same time it lets you search for one card in your graveyard or waiting room, as people like to call it, to add it back to your hand. So you can search some key cards that you need during that turn and add to your hand and use it, right? And at the same time you also generate memory, and for only one cost. So typically if you this card is very useful. Like at level 2 you really need this card, or I would highly suggest that you actually do need this card to like actually help student council run efficiently. Because at level 2 most of your cards are probably in the waiting room, so when you activate this you can basically search for whatever you need from your deck and add to your hand and use it. Typically you can search for a changer, which basically guarantees you into the level 3 ultimate, and at the same time you will actually gain enough memory, because something I forgot to mention is that the level 2 ultimate, when she changes, she also goes to the memory, so that's another feeder to the memory. So it's very easy to build up to 4 memory in this case, especially if you activate 2 of these and there's already 2 in the waiting room, then you have 4 memory instantly, right? But yeah, the searching is very helpful, because also in this deck, hand size is quite a crucial problem. Like, there's quite a lot of lacking, like you lack hand size quite a lot, and I'll kind of explain why. It partially has to do with the fact that I'm playing yellow as the main color of this deck, and yellow is just, it drains hand size pretty fast. Alright, so for level 1s, I played 3 Ricos again. Sometimes I don't know the actual name for these, so I'm just gonna like call them by characters, because I don't want to spend time trying to figure out the entire name. Anyway, what her effect is, she has a Climax combo synergy with one of my Climaxes that I'll show you later. And when you activate the Climax, you can check the top card of your deck, and if it's a student council trait, you can select one of your opponent's characters and return it back to your hand. So this is a very powerful synergy, and if you get it to work, it's very powerful for sure, because you can send any character from your opponent's side of the field back into your hand. So like, if they spend a lot of cost and they don't have a lot of cost to expend anymore, and you play this along with your Climax synergy, then you can just send their like key card back in your hand and just like deal. You just basically dealt with a really with a tough card with just you just avoided dealing with it by sending it back to your hand, and basically they waste this stock and they lose a character in that sense. So this is a pretty powerful synergy. I usually use this. This is pretty good in it's pretty good in a lot of situations, because I can send annoying level 1s back into your opponent's hand, make them waste stock. I can send key level 2s back in your hand, or even changers back in your hand, and that basically screws them over as well, because I would have the field advantage by then. And I can also like send level 3s away with this card. So quite a lot of different usages. My other level 1s is I play for Sharu. What she does is, when I have 3 or more student council characters on my field, she gains 1,000 passively. So she's basically 106,000. So pretty good vanilla, especially because the entire deck is student council trait. 1 level 1 counter, and it's red just because it's also a promotional because it's Sharu. How much time do I have? 6 minutes. Maybe I can do this all in one video. Okay, level 0s. So I play 1 Brainstorms, and this Brainstorm is it adds power for every student council trait. For every Climaxes I mill out by the Brainstorm, I can add into one of my student council 2,000 power. So not a very good Brainstorm, but it's also the only Brainstorms that has a student council trait. So that's the main reason why I'm actually playing it. But just because sometimes when your deck just loses out too much Climaxes, it's helpful. It's helpful. Brainstorms are helpful, but I don't usually, whenever I think of Brainstorm, it's just not exactly the best thing. Like whenever you have to use it, you're always like, you're kind of behind already, in my opinion, right? Because you do have to pay the cost and mill, which means you're in a bad situation most of the time. Anyway, 3 Erica for level 0s, and what she does is, when I have when my other characters are student council, she gains 1,000 passively. So she's basically a level 0 35, and one of them shiny and alternate art is pretty cool. So pretty good beat 6. vanillas. Alright, so one of the main cards that in this clan, and this one's shiny, and if you guys notice the difference between the shiny and the regular one, then good for you. It is a pretty big difference. Here, I'll zoom in just to show it if you guys can catch it. Anyway, so this is a very good level 0 for this deck. Her ability is when she's reversed, you check the top card of your deck. If it's a student council, send it to memory. And it's free, so there's no cost needed to spend it. So all you need to do is check the top card. Of course, there are some difficulties in the sense that you can't check the right top card, but I mean the entire deck is student council, so there's a pretty high chance to actually check the top. And for a level 0 free cost that sends to memory, it's just very useful because like it helps you generate more memory, and it helps you compress your deck whenever you send one of these out, and it also meets the conditions for your level 3 cards, which needs memory to activate their effects or their passive effects. So moving on, I play one God Umbrella. Yeah, some people like to call it God Umbrella, but anyway. So she's Student Council, of course, and her ability is she gives all other Student Council Encore ability. Which means this is very useful for this series, especially because in this series we kind of lack power, like the deck kind of lacks power in general. This gives everyone Encore, so basically your characters being dead wouldn't really matter as much because you can just discard a card and revive them. And this is also one of the other reasons why this deck has very little hand size, because if you're using this card, you probably have to ditch a card quite often because of your weaker cards in general. But the good thing is that like since I have Encore, I can always just put myself slightly higher powered. Like I only need to my units only need to jump over the base on my opponent's unit, and I can just consider running them over because that would force them to use a counter, and it wouldn't really matter to me because it'll be a trade-off for me because it'll be 1-for-1, right? Because they use a counter and I have to discard a card to basically revive it. But in that sense, it's quite good because it's a fair trade, or it's kind of an unfair trade. But being able to revive my stuff is good because I can always just counter them because my base is actually pretty high, being given the extra 1,000 at level 3 and stuff. So pretty good. I only play one of because you don't really want to draw into too many of them at this, and the event will basically help me grab it if I need it. And sometimes just the deck actually just lacks hand size in general, even without using this card, so it's pretty hard to generate hand. But this is a pretty powerful level 0. It's a good assist. Okay, so moving on, I play 3 assist Ricos. They give the card in front 500. And her other abilities is rest this card, pay 1, take 1 damage, and I can search for a card that has Student Council President on its name. In this deck, there's only 3 cards that has his name, and one of them is, so like I said, there's a searcher that search into this. One of them is her, so I can use this card, pay 1, and just search for it. This is very good because it's actually +1. I don't need to expend my hand to get more cards. My other search target is the level 1, which is also very powerful or very useful because if I'm lacking units at level 1, I can always just tap one of these and just grab one. Basically free units. And last of all, the level 3 Anzu, which is also very powerful because if I needed a level 3 to heal and everything, I can also use this card to search for it. But of course, most importantly, it's just that I can search for cards for like I'm actually adding cards into my hand for free. So the other 2 assists I play is Christmas Sharuru. And what she does is she gives global 500, so that's pretty useful because I can play this in the front and still have power onto my units. And her second ability is when she's reversed, I can pay 1 and send this into memory. Now this is actually like not that necessary, but like in my case, it's just that this is more techy for me because in the case that I manage to not accumulate any memory, I can actually have the choice to manually send this because I can just pay a cost to send it instead of top checking, because sometimes top checking do fail. And once in a blue moon, I also don't get the event, which doesn't help me get any, which means I fail to get any memory. This card usually helps me generate some faster, so it's pretty useful. And I ran out of time, so I'm going to stop the video here and redo it. Hey, I'm back and I'm just gonna finish up, which won't probably take too long. So the last two level zeros I play is this guy, which I actually don't even know his name because I think it's Kiyotaka or something. Yeah, I think it is Kiyotaka. Anyway, he has a Bond ability, and if you guys don't know what a Bond ability is, basically it's like a searching ability, except from the waiting room. So when this card comes out, I can pay 1, and I can search for the Confessing Rika, which is my level 2, which is this card. See, now this is also very useful because at level 2, when I can play this and have basically 2/195, the Bond actually helps me grab it back. So I don't need to expend my event to actually search for this if I needed it. And at the same time, it also generates a hand for me. Like, it generates a card for me without clocking or ditching my own hand to grab another card. So it's not a 1-for-1 in a way. So I pay the cost and just basically grab it back. Quite useful. His second ability is when he comes out, I can choose to mill 3 cards from the top of my deck. Now this card is actually, like, that ability is like really just a bonus. Like, you can choose not to do it. I think it's a pretty useful ability because, like, the lack of brainstorms in this deck, like, especially because the brainstorm's not good, I choose not to run like more than 1. So like when you're actually like lacking compression or you need to actually refresh faster, this card actually kind of helps because you can you can mill 3 cards from the top of your deck just for free. Like, or even some random situations where if you knew your climaxes were kind of stuck together, you can use this to mill it out and just putting in the waiting room. Like, that's pretty gimmicky in a sense. Like, the whole idea of using this card is quite gimmicky in my opinion. Like, I think it's a useful ability, not one that's always not always used, but it's there and it's quite useful. It's not really a bad ability. It's really gimmicky for sure. So those are all my little cereals. Shiny one. I wonder if you guys noticed the difference. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, just keep that to yourself. So for my climaxes, I play 4 gates, and they're all different because DC is cool like that, and because I don't really have a gate synergy for this deck, it doesn't really matter which gate I run, so I just run 4 different gates just to basically look cool. And, well, they look pretty and everything, so I like them. I played 2 spins, so 2 of the spin icons, so if I check this, I spin a card back from my opponent's side onto their hand. This is also the Climax synergy for my level 1 Rika, which also allows me to spin cards back, so it's very useful. I only played 2 of because I actually used to play 3, but then I kind of got convinced to play 2 of another Climax. But in that sense, it's just that when you draw this card into your hand, you might have to like keep it, or just you gotta think about when you want to use it for sure. Like, you don't want to just freely use it and have like because it's a 1k 1 soul, right? Which is also the same as gate, so you don't want to just freely use this. You do want to use this in a situation where it's more beneficial, but sometimes you might get forced to use it. So yeah, you just really have to weigh your conclusion or your like decisions before thinking about using this card. And yeah, my other 2 is a 2k1, so plus 2k and draw 1. Very useful in this deck because of the lack of hand size, and basically this climax helps you generate like a hand. And yeah, that's basically my student castle deck for the Capo. And if I really haven't said it before, this deck really lacks hand size and is really focused towards generating memory and kind of using gimmicks here and there to win. Because there's quite a lot of little like small gimmicks in this deck to like kind of mess with my opponent's field. But generally, the idea for this deck is to have better compression from memory and basically having a stable feel. Because like basically this deck, if you kind of do it properly, you can have a very good compression. Like, you can put your climaxes back in your deck like very well. In that sense, is that like you lost a lot of different other cards that you don't really need. So there's basically more space. There's basically less cards in your deck, so whenever an opponent attacks you, by theory you should cancel more, but that's only by theory, right? I mean, in the end there's still something like Luxac, so pretty good. But I mean, I play this deck quite a lot as well, and it does have pretty good like compression ratio. So it's a pretty fun deck. It's also not easy to play with because the lack of hand size is really sometimes hard to deal. You have to really weigh the quality of hand versus like hand size, like large hand. Because it is kind of hard to work with when you have like a low amount of hand. And which is why the Encore card really helps, because it helps you keep your feel. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this decks. So see ya until next time, which is probably Vanguard.